In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Weekly Roundup. In this program, we'll be discussing important political, social and economic affairs which have happened domestically as well as globally in the light of sermon of Ustad Mohtaram Sayyid Jawad Naqvi. Various incidents have happened domestically as well as globally. We'll be discussing one by one. And as always, I am pleased to have been accompanied by Mr. Ali. How are you, Mr. Ali?
I'm not bad, thank you, Fahim. How are you going?
I am very fine. So, starting the program, Mr. Ali, domestically, Prime Minister of Pakistan has given a very important statement, and he has said that in Pakistan, the rule of power rather than rule of law prevails. And this is unprecedented statement because none of the head of government has expressed this so explicitly, although this is an established fact in Pakistan that there is no proper law and order in Pakistan, and law is just for the poor people, and the stronger factions of the society are just do not follow the law properly.
That's true, actually. And this is one of the favorite topics of our Prime Minister, Mr. Imran Khan. He always speaks about the corrupt people and the mafia. And what mafia is of several types, as you know, Fahim. There are political factions which are a part of mafia, and there are some religious associated people who are a part of mafia, and media as well as some armed groups. As for instance, there used to be armed group
organizations
in Karachi, like MQM and Public Aid Committee over there. Like they used to have like the influence in the city, and in our country we see that whoever has got power will do anything, and no one can even raise a finger on what you are doing. And if someone talks about it, they just crush their opponents. And this has been going on for more than 70 years in Pakistan, unfortunately, and this is true.
Yes, but this is unprecedented statement because the Prime Minister himself is in power, and he is unable to give law the power it has, and mafia still prevail in our country, and this is very unfortunate. Because if powerful has to become into power, then why is there democracy in Pakistan, and why people indulge in this so-called election process? Then the powerful must come in front, and people he must be identified to the people that he is the powerful person in Pakistan or in our country, and people should obey him. This is the simple process.
That's actually right. Actually, I mean, it's double standards of all the politicians when they are running their election campaigns. As like our Prime Minister, he always used to say that when he'll come in power, and the corruption and the corrupt mafia and all these big people, he'll take the money out of their throat. But practically what we see is that those powerful people, either they've got the rich people, some names, but we know the big names in Pakistan in politics, as well as some building mafia and some other, like Malik Riaz and some other people, they are still operating in the same way. And the corruption has increased several times in all the departments. There are reports from Transparency International and some other international organizations that although this government claims that they are working against corruption and want to just finish this what you call it, status quo, break that status quo thing in Pakistan, but in real the situation is totally different. And because our Prime Minister is not actually a politician, he is a cricketer. That's why sometimes the truth comes out of his mouth, and that's what it has happened this time too.
Yes, but no head of the government has expressed this so explicitly like our Prime Minister did, just because he is not a career politician.
That's true.
Rather, he was a career cricketer, and then he turned into politician. So that's why he expresses such statements.
That's true,
Well, further moving on, as you know that few weeks ago, incident occurred in Dassu, where a bus carrying Chinese engineers and laborers fell into ravine, and several Chinese engineers got killed, and similarly other laborers. And first of all, the Interior Ministry of Pakistan denied that it was not a blast or something. It was not a terrorist attack, rather it was due to cylinder blast, and that's why the bus fell into the river. And later, when Chinese investigation team approached Pakistan, and they looked deeply into the matter, and they just put pressure on Pakistan. Now our Interior Minister has said that it was the result of blast, and RAW and Afghan intelligence agencies are actually involved into this matter, and they basically orchestrated this blast in Kabul and then implemented in Dassu. And this is very alarming for Pakistan.
Yep. And actually, our Interior Minister is an interesting person. Mr. Sheikh Rashid, he was always interested in this ministry, and he tried several times during different tenures of the governments, but this time Imran Khan listened to him and gave him this ministry. But unfortunately, the performance has been hopeless. As you can see from this incident, that the Interior Ministry and different government departments, they are changing their statements. And as you said, that initially they said that it was just the blast wasn't a terrorist attack, but because of the pressure of the Chinese government, they had to accept it. And now they've come out to the conclusion that it was a suicide attack, and the suicide attacker had come from Afghanistan. So it's such a disgrace that our different departments, they are not coordinating very well with each other. And our Interior Minister, he spoke too soon without having the accurate information about the incident. And I think these sort of things should be avoided. And China takes the lives of their citizens really seriously. And China has told Pakistan government that they have to provide full-fledged security to their laborers or the engineers who are working on different projects. Like in Dassu, they will only continue that project. It's a very important project, as you know, that different dams are being built in different hydropower projects are being built on Indus River, and it is one of it. So they will only continue if Pakistan government provides them full security and investigates this incident properly.
Yes, if we look deeply into this matter, this place Dassu has very importance for Pakistan as well as China. If we look from the Chinese point of view, it has the importance due to CPAC, because China has spent billions of dollars in this project, and this one belt, as you know, that CPAC is the part of One Belt One Road initiative, and Chinese are spending their billions of dollars and their time and energy and risking the lives of their engineers and laborers. So China want full peace in this environment, and they also have got their own security in this region. So that's why this region is important for China due to CPAC, because of their investment, heavy investment. But if we look from Pakistan point of view, it has dual importance, not just from the CPAC point of view, because the enemies of Pakistan like India, and now as our Interior Ministry has indicated that Afghanistan is also involved, and they have orchestrated this blast in Kabul. So Afghanistan is definitely involved into this matter. They want to spread terrorism in Pakistan. And so enemies of Pakistan don't want this CPAC project to be successful. And another importance is that this is the only way to the northern areas of Pakistan, Gilgit and Baltistan. And as we know that India is also eyeing this region, and they want terrorism, and they don't want this region to be peaceful. And because it is a Shia majority area, and it has also the importance due to natural resources and all these things, so Pakistan has to be very vigilant regarding this area.
Yeah, actually, another aspect of this topic is that just only a week before that incident, the terrorists, as we talked about in the previous programs, that they did show their presence on, they telecasted the videos on social media, that they spent the whole day on Babu Sar Top. And they are the same people, they are the same terrorist group which had murdered Shia Muslims after identifying them in Lalusar, after taking them out of buses and just killing them. And after that, they were arrested by the government, and later on they actually were able to flee from the jails after breaking the jail, and they also did kidnap some of the foreign tourists or the people who had come for the mountaineers. And this is quite unfortunate that if the government will allow these sort of people to operate freely, then peace is impossible. And this is duty of the government to provide security to the people of Gilgit-Baltistan. As you said, that this is the only route which connects Pakistan, Gilgit-Baltistan to the rest of the Pakistan. So this route has to be protected. And if you are talking about getting rid of the terrorism in Pakistan, which is everyone wishes for it, then you have to work on the root causes of terrorism. Only cutting the branches is not enough. Only killing or targeting a few terrorists, it's not enough. And they should take some real solid steps to tackle the situation, to secure the area.
Yes, further moving on, very unfortunate incident happened in the southern Punjab, Raim Yar Khan district of the southern Punjab, where a Hindu temple was set on fire and then dismantled. And this is the routine in Pakistan for the last 40 years since the Shah regime came into power, and he started making certain terrorist groups, and they started killing Muslims, and especially Shia Muslims, and these events happened through Pakistan for the last 40 years. But this incident is very important because judiciary came into the act, and they called police and they asked the police why did this incident happen, and the president of Pakistan and the governors also have taken notice of this incident, and now the temple has been rebuilt, which is a very good thing. But there is another prospect of this matter also.
Yep, and this pick and choose policy needs to end, because it's really good, as you said, that judiciary has been proactive in this incident, like the government. The whole government machinery came into action after the incident of Army Public School, when children were murdered brutally by the terrorists. But on the other hand, if we see that when there are killings of Shia Muslims, like there are several incidents in Karachi, in Quetta, in Lahore, and several parts of the country,
yes, where Shia Muslims government when the Hazara Shias were killed.
Yeah, but the treatment was different. Even the government officials, our Prime Minister, he didn't want to attend the funeral of the Shias who were killed in Quetta. And why treat the citizens in the different way? I mean, there should be an equal treatment, and these double standards should end. And all the citizens, either they are Muslims or non-Muslims, Shias, Sunnis, Hindus, Christians, they should get protection, because this is the duty of the state to provide protection to people, and this increases the love of the people to the state, and this is really important.
Yes, as we know that the Quaid-e-Azam, the founder of Pakistan, has also stated that you are free to go to your temples, you are free to go to your mosque, and to whichever religion you belong, state has nothing to do with this. You have the freedom. So this freedom must be provided equally to all the citizens, whether they are Shias, whether they are Sunnis, whether they belong to whatever faction, or whether they are minorities. These double standards must be finished, because this creates discrimination, and then problems can further erupt, as we know that there have been problems for the last 40 years due to this sectarianism problem. Now, further moving on, if we talk about the global affairs, the situation in Middle East is very perilous, and many analysts are of the view that full-scale war can erupt between Iran and Israel at any moment, because there have been certain skirmishes between Iran and Israel, especially when Trump regime came into power, and Israel have been boldened due to Trump's action, because if we talk about the Muslim world, Iran is the only enemy of the Israel, because all other Arab countries and Arab countries especially have 12 full-scale normalization deal with the Israel, and now they have proper diplomatic office in Israel, and Israel have their ambassadors in these Muslim countries, and there are several other Muslim countries who have relations with Israel, but they simply hide it. So now if we talk about the Muslim world, only Iran is the Muslim country who is opposing the policy, especially the atrocious and bellicose policies of Israel against the Palestinians. So this is very clear that the only enemy to Israel in this region is now Iran, and this problem actually started recently when there was attack on the Israeli ships, and Iran officially denied it, that it didn't do it, but the UK and other global powers have accused Iran that Iran was involved into this matter. And if we look into this matter, it is quite possible that Iran just gave a signal to the Israel and other Arab countries that it is incapable of doing this, and because Israelis and Arabs were emboldened because they had taken certain secrets of the Iranians, but now Iran have given them a full-scale reply.
And actually, if we talk about the Israel-Iran relationship, actually Iran will get the blame for this escalation in tensions between Israel and Iran. As you know, that there are several phases of the relations of Israel with the Middle Eastern countries. In the first phase, before Inqilab or revolution, Israel used to dominate the whole Middle East, and there was no person to challenge the power of Israel. But when in the second phase, when Inqilab came, Imam Khomeini and the Irani regime supported Palestinian freedom movement. They strengthened Hezbollah and some other groups who are opposing Israel. And at one stage, it looked like Hezbollah is going to eradicate Israel real soon. But the third phase, which is the present situation which has developed recently, after the increasing of support by US after Trump came into power, and also the Britishers and their allies, Muslim allies like Arab countries, they have developed, as you mentioned, relations with Israel. This has given a new confidence to Israel. And you see the change of tone in Israel, and they've become really aggressive. And as you mentioned, President Rouhani in his funeral, his farewell speech, he acknowledged that Israel have actually stolen several documents which had information regarding the nuclear sectors of Iran. And Ali Yunus, the ex-intelligence chief of Iran, he said even even a more scary thing about it, that Israel has got so much influence inside Iran that they can kill any famous personality or leadership of Iran inside Iran, and they should be really vigilant about their security. And we have seen in this recent past that Israel has attacked on nuclear sectors of nuclear power plant of Iran, as well as they have attacked Iranian-backed people inside Iraq and Iranian assets in Syria. So this is escalation of the tensions between them. And Iran is trying to continue its policies, but on the other hand, it's trying to avoid war, because financially and economically, Iran is not in the condition to fight a full-fledged war. And what Mohammed bin Salman, United States, as well as Israel, they think that this is the type of situation in Iran which suits them, and they think that if they can attack Iran and if they can put Iran in the war situation at this stage, they've got more chances of winning the war. But as you said, that a recent response from Iran has given them the signal that it's not that easy, as well as Hezbollah.
Talking about the role of Hezbollah, Hezbollah has also launched several rockets and missiles on the Israeli installations, and they have expressed this explicitly that we did it.
Yep.
and we are here to fight you.
Yep.
So if the war erupts in the region, then
Yep.
there will be several players in the region. It will not only the war between Israel
Yep.
and Iran,
Yep.
rather Hezbollah will also take part.
Yep.
And although this war has to be take place at one time, but now recently it is not going to happen.
Yep, hopefully. And what has happened after this response from Hezbollah as well as Iran? The recent statement from Israeli Defense Minister tells that they have actually realized this signal, and they are now demanding the international community to try to control Hezbollah and Iran. And this means that they have understood this language. And as we said before, that Israel only understands the language of power. If you will condemn different atrocities or whatever actions they are carrying out, or if you will request them to stop,
yes, they will gain more confidence.
They will keep going. But this is the language they understand, and now
the Israeli Ministry of Defense has warned the international community that they must stop Iran. And so this is the clear change of tone from Israel, and hopefully the matter is going to settle soon, and there will be no full-scale war, although the analysts and some other factions are predicting that this full-scale war has to happen one day. Now, further moving on, talking about the neighbor of Pakistan, Afghanistan, the situation in Afghanistan is changing day by day, and Taliban are advancing toward the Afghani capital, Kabul. And now recently in a statement, US President Joe Biden has stated that Taliban are about to topple the Ghani regime in about 90 days. And some analysts are of the view that they are going to take the Kabul soon, because they have taken control of more than 11 provinces, and provisional headquarters like Kandahar have also been toppled by the Taliban. And some other areas like Herat have also been in the control of Afghan Taliban now.
And the situation in Afghanistan is quite critical, and Afghan government has become really weak after the recent successes from Taliban. Taliban are giving some mature statements. They have done agreements with the neighboring countries like Iran, as well as China and Russia. They have assured them that they are not going to interfere in their internal affairs, and as well as Pakistan. People or the world blames Pakistan for supporting Taliban, and Pakistan has been denying it. But the thing is that it is a testing time for Taliban, because nowadays, as we know, that they are the days of mourning for Shia Muslims. They are the days of Muharram, and our brothers in Afghanistan, Shia brothers, they commemorate this Muharram occasion in a really nice way, and they've organized different processions and different majalis during these days. And in past, we have seen several suicide attacks, different bomb blasts on Shia processions. And Taliban, although they have assured that they will not be fighting against any sort of sectarian war, and they will keep all the groups, including the Shia Muslims, they called them even brothers in the recent statement by the
but now the alarming situation is that Taliban are about to take the control of Bamiyan and Mazar Sharif, and this is the Shia majority area, and there are chances that Taliban might attack the mourning and majalis of Muharram al-Haram. And now this is the testing time of the Taliban, because they have claimed that Shias are their brothers and they are not going to attack the Shias, and they have also showed other regional powers like Iran, China and Russia that they are not going to
involve in their internal affairs, that if they stick to their words and they don't harm Shia Muslims, this is also going to favor them too, because world is going to only trust them if they stick to their words. And if they don't repeat the same mistakes what they have done in past, and their sectarian style of governing the country is going to harm themselves only, and it will sort of like war condition or war situation is civil war can erupt in Afghanistan.
That civil war can erupt in Afghanistan if they attack the Shia majlis.
And no one wants it. It doesn't favor Pakistan or any other neighboring countries, and hopefully Taliban will act according to their words, and time will tell what happens in future, and we'll see.
Yes, we pray for the safety of the Shias in Afghanistan, and we also pray for the safety of Afghanistan. Now we are going to take the short break, and after the break we'll be discussing about the independence of Pakistan. So keep in touch with us. Welcome back after the break. So as you know that before the break we were discussing some domestic affairs as well as some global affairs. Now as you know that today is 14 August and it has marked the 74th Independence Day of Pakistan, and this is very important day for Pakistan in the history of Pakistan, because it is the day for thanking Allah Almighty, because the independence movement just become successful on this day, 14th of August 1947, and the leaders of independence movement, especially Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, was successful in creating a new country for the Muslims of subcontinent, and it is the day when all the Muslims of Pakistan must thank Allah Almighty, because Allah Almighty has not only given us independence but also has granted us the land of unprecedented geography, a land where
we can actually live the life according to our religion. And some people, although they argue inside India, and some politicians in Pakistan too, that they talk against that two-nation theory and this partition, but the recent situation in India has proved them wrong, and the stance of Allama Iqbal and Quaid-e-Azam has proved to be right. And this is actually such a blessing that we should be really thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it, and we should try to go to the next step of independence.
Yes, if we analyze this, our freedom, we have only gained a separate state and separate land now, and further steps, next steps of independence still need to be achieved. Because if we look deeply into our educational system, it is still old, and it is of the British time, and the education system which British has orchestrated for us, we are still going through that education system, and our medium of education is still English.
Lord Macaulay
yes,
educational
and
system.
it is very unfortunate because in Pakistan people are unable to understand English, and it is very difficult because it might be the only country where we have to study and learn in other language other than our mother language or other than our national language.
Inferiority complex it is actually,
yes,
that's true.
And similarly, if we talk about our judicial system, where judges and lawyers talk to each other in English, and the common person whose case or whose plea was there in the court, he is unable to understand what they are saying, and even the decision is being ruled in English. So this is very unfortunate. And similarly, the Constitution of Pakistan is also a copy of British India Act of 1935.
Sorry, 1835.
Yes, and we are going through this. So this is very
actually,
severe sort of slaveryhood.
It's this type of mindset. There are two mindsets in Pakistan still which we see in our society, that the majority of people they have inherited their mindset from Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, who think that if they won't learn English or they won't do the things what the Englishmen were doing, they can't exist and they can't actually survive in this world. But Allama Iqbal, as he mentioned, that he wanted to break the shackles of this slavery from the people of subcontinent, especially the Muslims in subcontinent. And the reason is that different scholars who are impartial and who are moderate, they accept that until and unless the Muslims of Pakistan or the other countries, they don't consider Imam Hussain alayhi salam as their guide, and if they don't do the exercise of what lesson Imam Hussain alayhi salam taught us, they won't be able to become independent completely.
Yes, now if we talk about the present situation of Pakistan, Pakistan is under the siege of IMF and similarly some other Arab countries, because Pakistan is going through the economic crisis, worst economic crisis, and our Prime Minister, our head of government, cannot even decide whether he can attend the conference in Malaysia because
really
a phone call from the Arab country who had just given some loan to Pakistan, and they just threatened Pakistan that they won't give the loan to Pakistan, and then the Prime Minister of Pakistan
had to change his decision,
and didn't go to Malaysia. So this is very unfortunate fact. So if we talk about the Allama Iqbal, who was the main theoretian of Pakistan, and he gave the theory that a separate homeland must be created for the Muslims of Pakistan. Allama Iqbal in his poetry said that there is one deficiency in our independence movement, and he said that Kafla Ijaz make Hussain Bini. So there was everything in that independence movement, but the theory and of Imam Hussain Islam was lacking, and that's why these problems of present day Pakistan are due to this issue.
And he figured out, as you mentioned, the lackness of the that special guide, especially Imam Hussain alayhi salam. And in recent history, we see that Imam Khomeini Rizwanullah Ta'ala is the only person who has actually been able to understand the lesson of Karbala, or he had been able to exercise on the footsteps of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, as he actually did act on them. He did mashq of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. And we see that one of the bureaucrats, as what his name was, Mr. Maqsood. Mukhtar Maqsood. Mukhtar Maqsood. He writes in his book that he was actually the ambassador of Pakistan at that time, at the time of Inqilab. And in
pre-revolution and also post-revolution.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and he wrote regarding that revolution that he, when he was appointed to go to Iran, he took different advices from different people that he is going to a new country and what should he expect over there. And people told him different things, that this sort of food will be available there, and this sort of language and these sort of people. But one retired colonel told him a real important thing, that these Iranians, they are double-minded and they are confused, because on their tongue they have got Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and they are ready to do anything for Imam Hussain alayhi salam. They are spending their money, and they are doing azadari and everything for Imam Hussain alayhi salam. But on the other hand, they are putting up with this humiliation, as well as this Yazidiyat for more than 2,500 years. And
yes,
this is
monarchy was prevailing in Iran for more than 2,500 years.
That's true,
And he further writes in his book that when he went to Iran, he observed this thing. And because this was the pre-revolution era. And he also writes in his book that when he stayed there, and then when Imam Khomeini came from Paris into Iran, and he saw that scene, how the hundreds of thousands of people came to welcome Imam Khomeini, and then the Shah regime has to just pack up and leave, and then the Islamic government was established. So as he writes in his book that Iranian nation was in contradiction before the revolution, but post-revolution they just finished that contradiction, and now on their tongue as well as on their heart it was Imam Hussain alayhi salam. So because Imam Hussain alayhi salam is the true leader of freedom, and all those nations who have taken freedom, they have got certain links with Imam Hussain alayhi salam and the movement of Karbala. And this Independence Day is very important because it has come in Muharram al-Haram, and so this has to be these days, especially in this our Independence Day has to be spent in accordance with the Islamic, and hundreds of thousands of people must come on road, and they should chant the slogan of Pakistan and also Imam Hussain Islam, because he is the true leader who can grant freedom to Pakistan. Well, further moving on, there are steps of freedom, and as Imam Hussain Islam only grants freedom to those nations who accept Imam Hussain Islam as their Imam, and the first step is to break the shackles of humiliation.
And actually the lesson which Imam Hussain Islam taught us, and the lesson which Allama Iqbal was trying to preach, and the lesson on which Imam Khomeini acted, was that never put up with Taghut, and also never only say accept any sort of humiliation. As you said, that we should get rid of the religion of humiliation, and we should only and only accept the religion of dignity. And Imam Hussain alayhi salam said that living with dignity or living with humiliation is actually not acceptable, and he would rather like to die with dignity.
Yes, and death with dignity is better than life with humiliation.
And we saw that the people who acted on the theory of Banu Umayyah, and who did put up with Mughals and different, like for last 1400 years we've been seeing that people have been putting with different
the followers of Umayyad dynasty are still there, and they're constantly being humiliated, and they have taken the nation to this step that our whole nation has been humiliating, especially nowadays by IMF and other foreign countries, superpowers like USA and Arab countries. So the only solution for Pakistan to get out of this humiliation is to break the shackles of humiliation, break the chains of humiliation, and to walk on the path of dignity, which is the path of Imam Hussain Islam, and to accept Imam Hussain Islam as the Imam, because as we know that Pakistan is Muslim majority country, and all the Muslims, whether they are Shias or whether they are Sunnis, they accept Imam Hussain Islam as their Imam.
And and majority of Pakistanis are Hussainis, and there's only a small group of Yazidis, and we saw in the before the last Muharram that there were small gatherings only of these so-called muftis. They were chanting the slogans of Yazid Zindabad, but they are only few. Majority of Pakistanis, either they are Shias or Sunnis, and we saw also different other factions like Hindus and Sikhs and Christians. They gathered in Jamia Urwatul Wusta last year in the program of Parbain and a program afterwards, and they did show the world that all Pakistanis are Hussainis, and they will, if they stick to the religion of Imam Hussain, which is the religion of independence, and saying no to Taghut, then obviously Pakistan get the real independence and the cultural independence which Allama Iqbal and our leaders, they wished for. I mean, we've got a separate geographical piece of land, but the actual independence, and because this is the situation we are in, is a worst form of slavery, because we are slaves of the slaves of Britishers or US, because Arab countries, as we know, Mohammed bin Salman and other governments, they are slaves of West, and we have to actually bow in front of them and say yes to them, because we are financially not independent. So
yes, there are certain Arab countries like Iran where there is the shrine of Imam Hussain Islam, but unfortunately they are still being humiliated.
That's true.
And they have not followed the path of Imam Hussain Islam, the only reason of their humiliation, because whoever ignores this path, the real path of dignity, his other destination will be the humiliation, just like Iraqis did. And as we know that Iran followed the path of Imam Hussain Islam, and now they are being dignified throughout the world, and they are independent in their foreign policies, although there are some problems in Iran due to these Western pressures.
And Jamia Urwatul Wusta and Ustad Mohtaram, they have played a significant role in reawakening of the people of Pakistan, and this is the only seminary which organizes the Independence Day program as well as the 23rd March program throughout the whole country. No religious seminaries, they are interested in the Independence Days, but this seminary has got an important role in it. And this on today's today's Independence Day on 14th of August, there was a fantastic sort of ceremony which was organized in Jamia Urwatul Wusta, in which the students, they did march, but they were wearing the black dresses and they were carrying Pakistan flag as well as the black flag, and they were showing the link between Hussainiyat as well as the independence. And real independence is only possible if we follow the leader of independence, and the leader of independence is the leader who acts on the path of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. And
so there is also possibility that on this day certain Nasbis might try to humiliate this Muharram, and they might do something unusual like they used to do during the previous Independence Day. This can be possibility, but most of Pakistanis, as we know, that their Hussain is so the only good solution to spend this day is that people must gather hundreds of thousands of numbers in rallies, and they must chant the slogans of Pakistan as well as Imam Hussain Islam.
And the government should take practical steps against these Nasbis too, because as we've seen that before the arrival of Muharram and during Muharram, they are arresting azadars and different organizers of majalis. They are putting them in fourth schedule for unnecessary reasons. Then especially they should try to confine these terrorists or the Nasbis to their homes, or they should put them in jail, who are wanting to spoil that days of azadari and who want to actually cause this distress inside our country. And this is the duty of the government here.
One more lesson which we can learn from these three is that during the era of Imam Hussain Islam, there were Kufis, Hijazis and Basris who didn't participate and who didn't join the movement of Imam Hussain Islam, and they just lived. And Imam Hussain Islam and his followers got martyred in Karbala, and now as we are seeing that there is no sign of those Kufis or Basris or Hijazis, because they had chosen the path of humiliation. And on the other hand, on the other side, after 1400 years, the Imam Hussain Islam and the followers of Imam Hussain Islam who got martyred in Karbala, they are living, and they are really living in our hearts. And so this is the lesson which we can take from this Karbala. And as we know that this 14 August has marked the Independence Day of Pakistan, and this Independence Day has very special importance because it has come in Muharram al-Haram, and today is the 5th Muharram al-Haram. And as we know that independence has special connection with Imam Hussain Islam, because Imam Hussain Islam is the Imam of dignity. And if Pakistan has to got real independence, like political independence, cultural independence, institutional independence, the only path for Pakistan is to follow the path of Imam Hussain Islam, because this is the only way we can break the shackles of humiliation, and we can really prosper in this recent world. So we pray for the long living of Pakistan and also for the prosperity of Pakistan. So that's it from today's program. We'll see you in the next week. Till then, it's goodbye. Allah Hafiz.